Run.
All right. Episode 7. Here we are on the Seventh House podcast, episode 7. And we just had the 8-8 portal as well. So 7-8.
Ooh.
We're
Well,
in
yeah.
succession here a little bit. I like it. I like it. I don't know if that means anything, but it feels good to me.
Well, I like synchronicities like that. The seventh house, seventh episode. Now, yeah,
Mhm.
today's the 9th of August when we're recording. So we just
Ah,
into the portal.
7, 8, 9. Joy.
Right on.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good day.
This is because we're talking about all the specialness of these numbers, and yet the title of this one is "What if you're not special?"
Right?
What if you're not
Where-
special?
what if you're not? What if these labels mean nothing? What if these synchronicities mean nothing? What if it's not special? What if we're not special? What if the labels that we identify with aren't what makes us special? And what if there's more depth to us? That's what we're talking about today. Anyway, Joy and I were getting into it the other day, talking about labels and how we overly identify with the labels that we give ourselves, the labels that we give each other, and trying to figure out how we can dig deeper underneath those labels,
Yeah.
and yeah, get to the root of who we actually are and find out what makes us special beyond the labels that we've given ourselves, and how we can be okay with not over identifying with these labels.
That's to me. That's the kicker. And
Yeah,
the rules in themselves of them in and of themselves, right? Not an issue. Um, and then I could even argue that they're needed in some way, right? And
yeah,
I think for a lot of us, they're kind of one of the first stepping stones to understanding yourself
mhm,
is which boxes do I fit in, right? Um,
exactly.
it can even be like from childhood, right? Like, are you the
Mhm,
wallflower kid? You the sporty kid? You the artsy kid? You the funny
yeah.
kid? Right? You're
Are you
already
the drama club kid?
the band kid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you wear more than one, typically,
Mhm,
but it's just human nature in a way to try to figure out where you identify, right? And your own identity. And that's beautiful. But
yeah,
that's not exactly where you need to end either. And when you dig under that and you dig deeper into it, it can reveal quite a lot, especially if you're over identifying with these labels. And that's, I think, what we were talking about the other day. We just kind of naturally touched on how culturally now in society, over the past, I don't know, what would you say, 10-ish years, it feels like?
yeah. I feel,
Maybe a little less than that.
especially since like 2020 COVID, when the whole world shut down and we
Yeah.
sort of had to take a pause, take a breath, and go inward and look at, like, wait a minute, who am I? What am I doing? There's nothing to do but kind of look at yourself and in a deeper way. And it's like, okay, well, now I got to figure out, like, who I am, what makes me special. And then I found over time this who am I, what makes me special, this over identification with labels came in. And then we sort of touched on a little bit the thing about, like, the pronouns. What label are you taking based on your gender specific, like, specifications, and, like, all of those types of things, and how it became one of those things even online, like, you can't even fill out a profile now without picking your pronoun, and that's like a label that it forces you to choose, and it's like, well, when did that becomes so important that it's part of the filling out a profile online specification. And like if that is there, and like our job title is there, and like all these other labels are there in that, it's like we've just become over identified with these labels basically like since around that time, I think. And like, am I kind of right on that? Like, do you feel the same way
Hmm.
around the timing on that?
Yeah, I was just say 10 years is pretty broad, but 6 feels good.
Yeah,
And I think
within the decade.
within the decade,
Yeah.
which is 6 years.
Yeah, that's in there.
But no, I like that point. How lockdowns and stuff, you couldn't go anywhere, right? There was limited things on what you could do to like hide from yourself or your issues or whatever else, or literally what was going on in the world, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, I think for a lot of people it was their spiritual awakening in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
And it was their introduction to reflecting upon themselves and everything like this, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And
And no,
it
go
brings
on.
it back to the point that you were saying too about like um discovering who you are, and like
Yeah.
it gave us space to discover who we are and decide what labels we wanted to move forward in our life, carrying forth like who am I now, and how am I going to show up in the world from this point on, because I have space and time to be able to reflect upon that and do that. So
Well, let's dig into why we hold on to them, though.
yeah.
Why would somebody hold, like, we can use ourselves as an example. Well, before 2020, I I think as a teenager, I took the Myers-Briggs test for a job, and he had us all take it. But on paper, that's how old I am. I got an INFJ. At that time, it meant nothing to me, right? Because I was new to all of it. But it did resonate. And then, as the internet became more of a thing, I think 10 years after that, I was at like age 17. So then, like in my mid 20s, I took the online test and I'm still an INFJ.
Yeah.
But
What does INFJ stand for, just for people listening if they don't know
do
what
I
that is?
remember? Introverted? I don't know. The J is F is feeling. The N, I don't know. Oh my gosh. But you know what? If I will make a note to put the free test down there, should you even want to.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing to add to the thing. Yeah, if you want to take this Myers-Briggs test,
Right. You
and
want to go down and
if you
add in
want to
the
know, I'm gonna look it up while you write that
yeah.
down quickly, because I'm really curious what that means, because I don't know. I don't think I've ever taken that test, to be honest.
Well, that's okay.
Um,
Well, there's obviously a free test you can take online. That'll give you a little thing. But while you're looking that up, I'll explain.
yeah.
INFJs are considered one of the more rare personality types. And that means as an INFJ, you're a little special. But it also means you typically go through childhood and everything else not really being fully understood, right? Which I think a lot of people resonate with. But I have the fall in this hat, right? This is what I had, and it's one of the more rare personality types, and it um, became something I identified with and almost wore like a badge. Not necessarily like I'm so proud of myself, right? Because
Well,
but it is,
in to touch on the what makes me special, to be that rare personality type, because this says 1 or 2% of the population is INFJ.
yeah. I thought you
So
meant
that would make you feel pretty special. You're part of a 1% crowd, right?
Yeah.
And it also means introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging, often called the advocate or the counselor as far as personality types go. So, yeah.
I'm sure you
I
can see that, right?
yeah, I see that. I can see how that would make a lot of sense for you.
Yeah.
And how you would over identify with that INFJ label because it's like, well, wow, that really makes me special. And to just kind of run with that for a good chunk of your life, like that makes sense.
No, it is. And it's a very human thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, and there was this curiosity about, right, like, how does this one little test, know, like, reflect on how I process my world and reality and experiences, right? That's essentially what it's doing, and how I interact with other people, all that good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and you can go down them rabbit holes where people explain it all, and it's quite interesting. This is true for pretty much every label, whether you're an
Hmm.
INFJ or not. That's just my personal little experience with labels, right? In the spiritual community, we see this with astrology, right? Uh,
Hmm.
our freaking thing is the seventh house. You and I both are,
Yeah.
what is it? I can't even think, Sarah. Our north nodes, is that
North
it?
nodes.
Our
Yeah.
north is in our seventh house, which happened to be in Gemini, right?
Yep. Yeah. We share that.
Um,
And we identified with that so much that that's the, the name of our podcast. You're so right.
I love calling ourselves out on that. I just think that
Yeah, that's so funny. We totally did that, didn't we? And I love how like the seventh conversation that we're having happens to kind of tie that in. We
perfect.
did that. We did that. It was an accident. Maybe because you're an INFJ and it just intuitively came to you.
Oh god, where am I going with this?
I don't know. I don't know, but I love it.
Well, I mean, we can over-identify with, like, I am a Virgo sun with my North Node in Gemini, apparently,
Hmm.
and Sagittarius moon, and just assume everybody knows what that means. I barely know what that means, but right, you can leave. I am a star seed from X, Y, and Z, from the
Yeah.
Pleiadians, and I'm not saying this to poke fun. I would say it's a half and half, actually. I'm half poking fun at myself, obviously, and everybody else, because it's like
Yeah. We
I
really
want to
believe
know the real you, right? What's the you under all those labels, right? That's who I want to
yeah.
get to know. This is what you're leading with. This is what you want to present, right? And there is some. I've certainly had experiences with the starseed stuff. I'm not personally in that rabbit hole, but more power to you, right? If that's your thing, but
Yeah.
or even just
Nothing.
our abilities, right? Like, I'm a psychic, I'm a clairvoyant, I can do this. Nothing is wrong with any of that. That's not what we're saying at all. We're not saying don't ever label yourself. Obviously,
Yeah.
we would be huge hypocrites since our whole podcast is that's what we we're not saying this in any way, shape, or form.
No.
We're digging deeper, right? It's
Yeah.
a very long-winded way to say we're digging deeper, everybody, right?
Yeah. This actually reminds me of this like parts work, like IFS when we're doing parts work, like the different parts of ourselves. We label them like the conspiracy theorist, the inner critic, the judger, the one who shames me, the inner child who just wants to play, like the playful one. And like for me in high school, like I was the punk rock chick. I have a very big part of my personality that's like still got that like punk rock edge to me. And it's like the whole thing about IFS is like taking all of these different parts of you that you've identified with at one point that have kept you safe, that have made you stand out in the crowd, that have, um, you know, been the advocate for you, the one that makes you curious, the one that helps you get work done, the motivator, the quiet one, like all of these different
Mhm.
parts of ourselves are an all encompassing bits of ourself. And IFS is about addressing all of these different parts, discovering what their role is in your life, how they've served you, how they've protected you, how they've shown up in your life, and sometimes even taken over and run the show for a while. But like the whole theme of IFS is to get beneath all of those parts and find the self underneath it all and like come back into, you know, who are they protecting? Who are they helping to motivate? Who are they, you know, keeping quiet or criticizing or judging? Who are all of these parts there to protect and to stand up for? And that's the self underneath it.
Yeah.
And to be able to like discover the self is the whole journey through the IFS practice. And I really liked that practice because it helped me to see how all the labels that I've chosen and put on myself and how all of these different parts of me played a role, where they took over and kind of ran amok and like put me in situations that weren't necessarily the best for me, how they kept me safe, how they did well for me. But who am I underneath all of that? And um, to be able to feel safety in just accessing the self underneath that and showing up as the self and letting all of those things be there and nurturing them the way that they need to be nurtured without letting them run the show. So I know it's a little bit different, but each one of these parts has a label that they identify with. And that you kind of have to discover to be able to be like, okay, wait, that's not the truth of me. That's a part. And that part, and that part, it makes up a whole. And to be able to feel safety in showing up as that whole encompassed version of yourself and to know when certain parts are kind of taking over and when labels and identifications that we have around ourselves are taking over. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's a really good thing. But other times, you know, like when your inner child shows up when you're in a meeting, let's say, and like maybe your boss starts yelling at you and you get really small and you turn into that little inner child, like the quiet one that just sits there and gets really nervous instead of just being confident and being able to be like, you're hearing him from your adult lens and not shrinking down and reverting back to that little girl that got yelled at when she was a kid and getting small and not standing up for yourself and not speaking your truth and using your voice. Like, where is that actually debilitating you? And where is that keeping you in situations where you're like putting up unnecessary fights or um, you know, like getting into argumentative situations or situations that aren't necessarily going to serve you in the long run, just because you want to be so identified with this part of you that feels like it's under attack. I
Well,
feel
and I
like
think if you are unaware, you're operating from that part, thinking it's the whole of you when it's not, right?
exactly.
Visual I got while you were speaking, Sarah, is like you have your core, which is the whole you, it's the real you, right? And then all of these parts, these labels are sticking out. They are
Mhm.
a part of you, but that's it. They are a fraction, right?
Yeah.
Them alone are not the whole, right? They're representing a certain trait, label, what have you. The cool part is when you move past identifying and operating from the space of a certain label, right? And you recognize in those moments who's actually at the wheel, so to speak, right? Who's making the actions and the decisions? Is it the part or is it the core, the me, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's where the fun stuff is. To have those moments because they're gonna come up where that inner child's like, I want to shrink and just be a tiny little thing and let no one look at me and like you can't see me, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you're still gonna feel it, right? That feeling doesn't go away, but you recognize that that's a part of you. That's your inner that wounded inner child, and you're operating from that whole space, that core space where you're like, you know what, Mr. Boss Man, I don't actually appreciate your tone, and I would appreciate having this conversation in your office and not in front of everybody else. You can just say it. And then you're like, holy shit, I just freaking said that. Like,
Yeah.
I stood up for myself. Where the freak did that come from? Because you're operating from your center, your adult
Yeah.
self, right? You're still feeling that pain, right? And
Yeah.
you can take a time, obviously outside of work or whatever, in this scenario we've created, to like sit with that part of yourself and be like, look, we can stand up for ourselves. We
Yeah.
really actually pretty easy. And I felt like a badass. And then we moved that conversation in the office and it went really well. And now I got a raise.
Yeah.
Right? Like, or now me and my boss are on the same page and I feel a lot more comfortable actually in my workspace than I did. That's called growth. That's called
That
yeah,
is.
growth. And
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the cool part. And then to go back to our title, like why you're not special, right? Is
Yeah.
we can have these little parts, and sometimes they're not little, they're big, I guess you could say, like the INFJ, right? You're like, oh, this is my way of thinking, and it is so rare and special. It is a gem in the world, right? But I'm way more than that,
Yeah.
right? That's not what makes me special, even though it's cool. It's
Yeah.
pretty. The seventh house, cool. It's also
It's
really,
a
we call it special. I have no idea how rare that is, right? But that's not the real reasons that make me special. For me, what's special, and using this in a fun, lighthearted way, is the ability to do that growth work.
yeah.
That's what's special. And that to me is something I would hope is actually not special in the world because I want everybody to do that type of work. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of going on a tangent. I'll let you take over this.
No, that's okay. I love that because what basically what you're saying is like the like that ability to grow and change and realize like I've over identified with something.
Mm,
And there's so much more to me than that. There is so much power in that alone and realizing that like, oh wow, I'm letting that title, that label that I've given myself, that label that came from that test of like, hey, you're special, you're part of this 1% group. You when you finally have that aha moment of like, oh wait, there's more to me and I can still be special without that special title.
yeah,
There's so much more goodness to me and my ability to witness that, realize that, and kind of accept that like I've over identified with that and like move on without shame or judgment or being like, ooh, that's gross or icky that I did that for so long. And just being able to like hold yourself in that, that's there's power in that. There's growth and like beauty in that. And like, does that make you special? No, because we should all be able to grow and change and see ourselves. But in this day and age, there's people out there that aren't really doing that level of self-reflection. There's a lot of people that are, but there's some that aren't, and there's some that are so hell-bent on identifying with that label. And if you get it wrong, if you mislabel somebody in some kind of way, for me, the level of tantrums that I see right now when people are getting misgendered, it's like you are so heavily identified with the label of your gender that you're losing it inappropriately at somebody else because they didn't know or couldn't see what was inside of you that you see. And like that over identification with the label and the like, how could you not see me this way? That's
Yeah.
where that becomes dangerous. And that's where that becomes, um, like an unpleasant way to identify with these labels. Yeah, it's beautiful that you are what you are and you identify with this gender, but to be so upset with another person that they've gotten what's going on inside you wrong by accident, that's where it can get a little bit hairy. And like there's other examples of this, like bosses in the workplace feeling like, they're not being treated like the boss that they are, and like being on that sort of high horse of like, well, I'm the boss. It's like, well, we're all part of what makes this company work. And I respect you in your position. But when I'm trying to see you as like um, a peer in this situation where we can kind of like help the company grow together, but you're kind of holding it over me that you're the boss, like that can get a little bit uncomfortable as well. So like there's lots of different ways that people can fly off the handle when other people get it wrong or don't see us in a certain light that we see ourselves in. And it's like it's okay to use these labels and the things that we're making ourselves special with, um, to be able to discover who we are, but then to lash out at other people unnecessarily or in a harmful, destructive manner because they're getting it wrong and they don't see us this way. That's, kind of where this like
Yeah.
over identification can be harmful to us and other people. So, yeah, I,
Well, when we do that, right, when you are over identified with one part of yourself or one label that you are heavily identifying with, right? We'll just keep with my INFJ. To me, I'd rather use myself as an example than anything else.
yeah,
But say I'm over identified with that. Somebody's like, "Oh, I thought you were a I can't even think of all the acronyms. You were like a ENFP," and it would be like, "Oh, excuse me, I'm no ENFP over here, right?
yeah,
I'm an INFJ. Get it right." What's that showing? It's showing my insecurity. It,
yeah,
if we boil it down,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
I would also say it is showing where I'm anchored. I am not anchored in my center. I am anchored in this one little part that I
Hmm.
am over identified. That's what over identification is,
Yeah.
right? Um, because now I am living in this one little piece of me. I'm putting all of me in it and I'm squeezing in like a cat trying to get in a bowl that's too small, right?
Mm,
And I'm gonna make
I
it
love
work.
that imagery.
I'm gonna make it work and I'm just gonna get in there and this is where I'm gonna live and it's the hill I'm gonna die on, all that kind of attitude, right? If you want to do that, that's your prerogative, but you're gonna get offended and you're gonna be living on edge, right? You're kind of teetering, you're gonna spill out of that bowl sometimes because it's not meant for that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're like, oh, but genders obviously can be really big for people, or your
Yeah.
orientation, or I was thinking about motherhood because that is such a big transition, and it literally rewrites your identity. That's also more a role versus like a label. So I'm going to put that in a separate kind of category. And the same with maybe other things are more roles, but you can take that identity on, right? Where I'm the best mom, I'm this kind of mom, right? And
Hmm.
try to put the cat in that box.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going somewhere cool with this if I can only catch it. No, to me, when people do that, that reaction to defend or fight about it, um, is reflecting that insecurity. And I think I wrote that down from when we talked the other day.
Hmm.
If you don't know and love yourself, you may use a label to help you understand. That's what I wrote down. To me, that's what that's pointing to. Um,
Yeah.
I love all my labels, good, bad, ugly, right?
Hmm.
Um, you could sometimes we label people by all the mistakes they've made,
Yeah, that's true.
right? Um, and you can take that on as your identity. Well, everybody thinks I'm a crook. I might as well be a crook, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We're playing around here, but I'm just saying, like, you're the whole spectrum of them all, to use that language. You're the whole rainbow, and everybody, not just the ABCs. We're all the whole rainbow. And being in that center, being in that core of yourself and anchoring in there, ooh, once you figure that out, which I guess we can talk about next, like the how to do that.
Yeah.
Um, but you're not gonna get offended if, oh, I've been told many times, like, "Joy, you seem so extroverted." And I'm like, well, actually, and I can't even say the word. I'm more of a 50-50, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like, I don't identify as like this big extroverted person. Um, but am I going to pick a fight with them? Right? Is this rattling who I know myself to be? And it's like, yeah, you know what? That's cool that I come off that way. That's pretty cool. So it's talking about inner security,
Yeah.
worth, right? Where do you put your self-worth? Is it in this box? Are you being the cat in the bowl with this label? Or are you accepting and loving of all your labels and putting in your worth in the whole of them versus this one slice of you? And
Yeah.
I think it also can point to past pain, right?
Hmm.
If you want love from your parents, and the only way you were able to get it as a child was by achieving something or, doing XYZ, or being top of your class,
Yeah.
being
That high
treated,
achiever.
and and taking that in, that's going to kind of program yourself to, well, I only receive love when I'm at the top. So I must be the best at everything so people love me, right?
Yeah.
Um, which was not my strength as a kid because I was not a top A student. But so this
Me
was hard.
neither.
But I think it's also relatable. For me, it was sports. I need to be really, really good at sports, so I can earn this love, right?
Yeah. That made you special in
Things
your parents' eyes or
and
in your eyes according to your parents.
yes, my parents value this, and I want the love, so I'm going to make myself do this so I can receive it, right?
Yeah.
That is if you aren't aware, you're going to carry that into adulthood, and it's just going to replay in other aspects. So let's clean that up. I just spilled a bunch of stuff. That's what I do as an INFJ, apparently. I'm sure there's other bits in there too of me that are coming out in this way. But what do you think of that whole mess, Sarah, that I just spilled out. Like, what do you want to add to it?
Yeah, like I I completely agree with all of the things that you said, because like that we identify with like what you said, like being good at sports makes me special in my parents' eyes. And it's like, well, what if that's not the only thing that makes you special to your parents? But we've identified that as a kid because that's how we view the world as we're coming of age and growing up. And so it's like we over identify with this, like, I have to be sporty, I have to achieve well in the area of sports in order to be special. But really, if you were to ask your parents, like, you're just special no matter what you do. You're loved. Like, I mean, there are some exceptions to that rule where some parents are very overly identified with that as well, where it's like, look at my child and how special they are because they're good at X, Y, and Z. That's not the case for everybody. Those
Yeah.
are specific circumstances. But in the theme of the topic, like, how am I not special, or, what makes me special? Like, that alone isn't what makes you special. But we put so much of our energy and so much of our life force into that one thing, when really there's just so much more there to us to explore, to even just share with other people, and to connect with other people on, and like to identify with that one thing just isn't helpful. Like, I was the same way. I was like a huge punk rocker when I was a kid. If somebody called me an emo, I got so mad. Like, mad, because I was like, ew, emo kids, like, ugh, no, I don't listen to that fucking garbage. Like, I'm not an emo kid. I really liked big emo kid hair, but I had mohawks and like facial piercings and like wore big chunky chains and spiky everything. And like, I'm just like, ew, emo. No, don't ever fucking call me an emo. And like, that spoke to my insecurities too, what you were saying. It's like when somebody gets it wrong and we get offended, that's a good point for us to be like, oh, wait, I'm offended. What's making me so
Yeah.
offended here? How can I hold myself in, like, in this pain that I'm feeling, and like, what do I need right now, or what is this part of me, this punk rock part of me that's been misidentified, what does she need right now to actually feel safe and comfortable and good in this moment? Because right now she's on the defensive. She's like, ew, no, that's disgusting, don't ever fucking call me that. And she's swearing, she's getting mad, she's like, ugh, making faces at you, being like, oh, you're fucking stupid. And like, but that's just a protective mechanism. And like, what is she trying to protect in this anger right now? How can I give that to her instead of expecting everybody else in my circumstance to give that to me? Because they don't know that I'm feeling over identified with this. They don't know that I've suddenly felt insecure or unsafe because they've misidentified me or mislabeled me. And how can I use this as a check in point to be like, oh shit, what do I need right now to give myself, to bring myself back into safety, to make myself feel held and loved and okay in this moment, regardless of what they call me, whether it's emo or a nerd or a hipster or anything other than the thing that I think that I identify with that makes me special. And like, how can I remind myself that I am still special, even if they get it wrong? And
Yeah.
even if, I'm not feeling seen for what I think that I am. Um, yeah, I think that's like those triggers, those like highly active, emotionally activated parts of our day or parts of our life, like those are the best check-in points to be like, oh wait, what part of me needs to be held right now? What part of me needs to be seen? What part of me feels insecure? And how can I bring that safety back? And that kind of goes into parts work in IFS too, because you can ask those same questions with really imagining that part in front of you and having the conversation with them and being like, what do you need from me right now? How can I bring us back into safety, and approaching it from that self aspect and putting yourself kind of in that centered, grounded, calm space of being, and curious space of being like, hey, I'm noticing that there's like an activation within me right now. And what can I do to simmer that down a little bit? What can I do to bring that safety back, bring that security back, ease this tension or this issue that's going on within me right now? Because there's clearly something going on in this activation. So,
Well, I think that's a great segue, Sarah, everything you just said into the how, right?
mhm,
Like, oh, no, I get triggered all the time. So tell me, ladies, how do I change? I don't want to experience that, right? Or I want to experience it in a different way. And yes,
yes.
that's beautiful. You're on the right track. That's step one, right? It's just you want to grow.
Yeah.
I would say there's two parts. First would be you're gonna get reflective. So doing parts work, doing these things that you just mentioned is the reflecting, right? On, well, I got triggered last week. Let's use that as an, not me personally, but I'm being hypothetical again. Um, use it, dig into it. What happened? What was underneath? What part was speaking? Were you leading in that part? Or were you from the whole place? Right? You're reflective on it. And you do that on different aspects from childhood, from adulthood, from your 20s, your 30s, whatever, right? All these different experiences you've had, you start reflecting. And then once you've done that, which that could take a day, it could take years, you do you with the reflecting. Um, to me, this is where observer mode, mindfulness come into play. And that's
Yeah.
kind of part two, where another triggering event occurs, right? Whatever happened that last week, it happens again. Somebody calls you an emo kid, and now you're like, shit. And
Yeah.
you can feel yourself, you can feel that rising.
Mhm.
But what's different, because you've done the reflecting on it and you're aware now, it's in your awareness, it's not buried in the deep subconscious anymore. Now it's in your awareness. When that moment happens, it clicks. Not all the time, but eventually it will. And you're going to be like, oh, I know what's happening. I know
Yeah.
what's going on. This is internally, you're having this, and you're like, no, they just they're just an old person and they don't know the difference between an emo and a punk, right?
Yeah.
They just had Elvis,
Yeah.
right? They don't know the difference. So I don't need to be offended by this. This is not any affront to me as a person. This
Yeah.
is them trying to
They're
connect with me because they're 80 years old and they don't even know what punk music is, right? And props to this old lady for trying to talk to me with my mohawk and all my things.
yeah.
Okay, I can actually, enjoy this now versus being Miss Defenseless
Charged.
and
Yeah.
like pew type of thing, right? Probably shouldn't have done that.
I love it anyway.
But that's how it plays out. And that's how it did for me. And this for me, it
Mhm.
took years. It's a process. Um and ooh, it feels really good when those moments show up, which they will, and you feel the emotions, but you're not them,
Yeah.
right? And you're anchored in who you are. It doesn't mean you're not triggered. It doesn't mean it it still feels awkward. It can still feel awkward in your body. You're gonna still feel those things, but instead of being engulfed and like
Yeah.
becoming them and
Yeah.
speaking from them, you stay centered in yourself, and
Yeah.
you can speak and you can give yourself the space, like, you know what, that that wasn't easy to hear. I need a minute. Can you please give me a minute? Right? You can create the boundaries and space you need to process it in real time to move through it. That's yeah. And I think parts work is a great thing for reflecting, journaling, therapy. There's a whole bunch of modalities you can do to get that step. And then it's on you.
Yeah.
Then it's on you to live it and act it out. And I think that's another kind of gap where a lot of people have the knowledge, they read the books, right? They go to the therapist, they do the things. They're really great at reflecting, but do they actively dig in those new triggers, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's the leap that
Yeah.
is
And
needed to be to have your self-worth in your center and not any of the parts you are.
yeah. And like you said that so beautifully, Joy. Like when we're coming from that mindful place and like that grounded in that grounded awareness, it does take time. Like it takes practice, it takes awareness, it takes mindfulness to really get there and be like, oh wait, I'm feeling my heart rate rising, I'm feeling myself want to explode at this person, and like kind of bringing yourself down from that. It's a journey to get yourself from that point of exploding all the time and protecting and going on the defensive of that part of you that feels like it's being attacked, to being in that space. And we will know that we're in our self energy and coming from a place of true like worthiness and like self-worth and self-confidence. I love the 8 C's of IFS because they're really, it tells you like how to know if you're coming from self energy. And I'll read them out. It's if you're coming from self, you're curious, you're compassionate, you're confident, you feel more in tune with your creativity. You have this deeper connectedness with you and like all things and the people around you, the people that are triggering you. You have a state of, you're in a state of courage so that you have the ability to speak up for yourself without the explosion. You're very calm and you're coming from a place of clarity. So all of those different things, if you're coming from even just one of them, you're tapping into self energy. But if you're anything but those, you know that you're leading from this over identified label, this part, this aspect of you that feels like it needs to be saved or protected in some way. Hence the mechanism to become defensive that happens within us because we're trying to protect that little part of us that does not feel confident and does not feel strong. And, so if you're curious, compassionate, confident, feeling creative, connected, courageous, calm, and coming at it with clarity, you know that that's yourself leading the show. And once you get there, you really do start to feel that like self worth
Mm,
building. Because when you feel worthy and you have high self worth, it's okay to speak up for yourself in a calm manner. It's okay to um, notice the connection and connectivity between you and that other person who maybe got it wrong, not because they're attacking you, but because they just didn't know. They
yeah.
were unaware, right? So it's like giving yourself that space to be like, oh, okay, I can still have the conversation and let them know that this isn't okay or this isn't what I want to be as addressed at, or but to do it in that calm, clear-headed place that mostly happens when we're in a state of self-worth. And we know that we're more than the labels that we've tried to give ourselves or that the world has given to us. So, yeah.
Well, and when you're operating, I love those C's. Oh my gosh.
They're
Like,
great. We
made
can,
me
I,
feel warm and gooey inside. And I'm like, yes, I love this feeling. Keep naming them. Oh man, I think I lost what I was gonna say, and I really liked it. Let me see if I can catch it. I don't know. But I don't know, Sarah. You keep
I,
it all interrupts you.
oh, that's totally cool. I think what we should do is I will send you the list and we can put those 8 C's in our in our description as well, so people can check in with that. And, it's okay if it takes you a while to get there. It's okay if you can't embody all 8 at one time. I have been doing IFS for the last maybe 2.5 years now, and I'm still not able to embody all of them all the time. There's still parts that kick up, and there's still labels that I, you know, over identify with in some regards, that I'm, working with those parts of me that, like, what makes me feel safe in this identification? How can I come back to that calm, collective, creative, confident self energy without that label? And am I still going to be special without it? Right. So
Well,
it's like,
that's a good tie-in because I remember once you're there in that center, in that core self with all those beautiful 8 C words, the need to feel special is gone because you are. You just are. You're just you.
mhm,
That's all you want to be. You don't want to be special. You don't want to be X, Y, and Z, right? You're like, no, I really freaking just love what's going on in here. I'm content. I don't know if that's one of your C's, but it could be.
it
Um,
could be. It is a C. We should add it. We should message the IFS Institute and get them to put that in there.
you're content. But I would argue that you do have an inner contentment with who you
Uh,
are because you love who you are and you love your ability to speak up for yourself and to do this growth, right? And
yeah,
yeah, so the what if you're not special is a fun way of just pointing to like your self-worth and that self-love
and
and
self
the
energy.
need behind, like if you're like, no, I really want to stand out, do some digging. Why do you need to stand out? What We all have a need to be seen and
Mhm.
understood. That's human 101, right? We are a social species. We want to be seen and understood. You don't need to try to cut that out of who you are. But why do you need to be seen in this special way, right? Why do you need to be seen in this way? I need to be seen like this. This is what, because this is where you're putting your value of who you are. When it really should be in here, you're pretty like a writer, right? Like, I'm a writer. I am a writer, and I write and I write and I tell stories, and I'm a writer. I'm in this box. My worth is in my writing. That doesn't. I do not feel comfortable saying that statement because while I am a writer, my worth is not solely condensed to that box, right?
Yeah,
It's condensed in here.
yeah,
And I'm still me, whether I write or not, right?
yeah,
I will probably always write as long as I can, and I will find all the methods, and this is beautiful, and it's just one of my ways of expressing myself. But my worth, my identity is not in that box, or it could be any box, an INFJ box, the punk rock box, right? Any of these labels, your gender, your roles. Right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, I love that. And I just love this whole conversation. This was great.
Well, it feels needed. It
Yeah,
feels
yeah.
needed.
I think it was the right time to have it too. Like the way that we just kind of like came up with this topic the other day just happened so beautifully and so organically. It was like, hey, like, what if you're not special? Like, how do we explore that topic? Like, let's get into it really deep. And like, we were even having conversation before the conversation about this, and it was awesome. So I think this was a really good one. I think we're going to have a really great meditation and ritual for the meeting house that's coming up. Are we going to do that next weekend or
Yeah,
the weekend after?
it's next weekend.
Okay. So that will be
That's gonna be
on
on the dun, 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 dun,
16th, is it?
on the 16th. Yeah, there we go. Of August.
All
16th.
right. And yeah, for that, we're going to be doing a really beautiful meditation on self love and self worth. And I'll be doing a little ritual, maybe throw some parts work in there, get into discovering self energy. And yeah, it's going to be a really good time. If you guys want to join, there'll be a link in the description for you guys to hop in and sign up for that. It's just $12 US for your spot to join us. And we'll be getting together in community to tie in everything that we just talked about today through meditation and ritual. So come check that out.
Yes, please come. Just, deep dive with us in this and explore it. Yeah.
Yeah. If you've ever felt yourself over identifying with a label, and even if you're doing it right now and you want to find a way to dig deeper in the why and how of that, and, how to be okay with dropping it and coming back to self, it'll be a really good time for you to hop in with us. So we'd love to have you.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap.
I think so too. I think we covered it all, other than what we're going to cover in the practice next week. So, yeah, awesome. Thank you, Joy. That was a beautiful conversation as always.
I agree.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. If you haven't already, give us a follow, like the video, and subscribe to our channel. And share this if you know it would help anybody. Let them hear it too. Let your friends and loved ones hear it.